Shawn, a 27-year-old rideshare driver and 1099 contractor, wants to buy a home but has a credit score of 400 from previously defaulting on a car loan.
So for everyone, your path to homeownership always starts with your credit. If you don't have good credit, then there's really not much that you can do from a mortgage financing perspective through a traditional mortgage outlet. There are some lenders that will take a lower credit score, but our requirement is a 620 credit score. That's the lowest that we go. And everything that you do revolves around your credit. So when I've taught homebuyer seminars, I've always told people, just don't be afraid of your credit report. Go get a copy of your credit report, review your credit report. Most people don't know this, but most of our credit reports actually have errors on them. That's quite common, that there are mistakes. So if someone doing data entry enters Shawn's name, and Shawn spells his name S-H-A-W-N, but when they enter his application, they spell it S-E-A-N, they've now created an alias for Shawn, which will now show up on his credit report as an alias. Nothing that Shawn has done, but something that he will have to explain, and he may not even know how that happened, not knowing that someone incorrectly spelled his name. But back to your credit score, I always tell people the simplest thing is get a copy of your credit report. Don't be afraid of it. And just start with your smallest balance. So if you have the smallest collection account, that's $50, pay it. Pay one thing at a time as you go. The other thing that you can do is these collection accounts, for example, if you have one, they're usually aged. And these lenders many times have written them off on their books, but they're still trying to collect the fee. So you'd be surprised, many lenders will settle the account for much less than what you owe them. So if you have a $5,000 collection account that you owe them, or in this example that you gave, for Shawn, his car got repossessed and he has a balance left over of $5,000, he very likely could call them and say, look, I have $2,000. Can I give that to you, and would you consider the account settled? And many lenders will do that for you. Many creditors, I should say, will do that for you. So negotiate on your own behalf and settle the account. A settled account is the exact same as a paid collection account on your credit report. So pay off everything that you owe. Whatever you do, this is incredibly important because so many people fall into this trap. Do not fall into the credit repair trap. If it is your debt, if it's something that you had opened and that you owe it, don't play this game of disputing, and trying to deny that it's yours. If it's yours, take accountability for it, own up to it, and work through it. I can give you an example for myself. I was in college at Pitt, and I came out of the student union, and Discover Card had a very nice little vestibule set up outside, and I walked over and went up to them, and they were like, yes, Jerry Pounds, you should apply for a Discover credit card. And so I did, and they gave me a $3,000 limit. I thought, for this poor kid from Blairsville, Pennsylvania, I thought, wow, I've really hit it big. So the Rodeo Drive of Pittsburgh is called Walnut Street, and I marched my little tail right over to Walnut Street, and in one day, I charged $2,983 on my Discover credit card with a $3,000 limit. I was walking down Walnut. I had bags on every arm. I bought myself a bicycle. I really did it up that day. And about 30 days later, I get a letter in the mail, and it said, your monthly payment is $350. I was like, what? I have to pay $350? Like, I don't have $350. So, lo and behold, Discover put Jerry Pounds into collection very quickly. And there I sat in collection. And then years later, I went to buy my first home. And guess who was patiently waiting for Jerry Pounds to apply for that mortgage? You guessed it, our friends at Discover were simply sitting there waiting for me, and there I was with my $3,000 collection account, which had now ballooned up to $6,900 with penalties and fees. And so I called Discover, and I took my own advice. It was my account. I owed them the money, and I ended up settling for about, I think it was about $1,800 when it was all said and done. And so I had to learn that lesson the hard way, but it was mine and I had to pay it. So take my advice. If it's your account, pay the bill, work out a payment plan. Many lenders, when you apply for a mortgage, if you have a payment plan and you've paid 12 months in a row on a payment plan, they can just count the monthly payment against you in the payment plan if the creditor will agree to that. So that's another option, is just to start a payment plan. So for your client, the getting a credit score increase, there's some tricks that you can do. So they just started to allow you to self-report your utilities. So imagine that you have a water bill, an electric bill, gas bill, cell phone. You can contact the credit bureaus and you can self-report those accounts, and that will help boost your credit score. Another trick that I have done many, many times is if you have someone in your family or in your circle that you're close with who's willing to put you on a credit card as an authorized user, their good credit could in part become part of your good credit if they put you on as an authorized user. That will report on your credit report. So that's another way of just boosting your credit score. But the end of the story on credit is, if it's yours, own up to it. It's okay. We've all been there. Many of us have experienced credit issues throughout our lifetimes, and we're not here to stand in judgment of you. We're here to help you fix it and find a path forward to homeownership.
You mentioned that credit repair programs aren't the ideal path for someone in Shawn's position. What advice would you give to someone who has already started that process?
So there are some legitimate credit repair companies out there. Like, a very common thing that happens is, if Shawn is Shawn Johnson III, and his dad is obviously Shawn Johnson Jr., it happens sometimes because they probably have lived together at some point in time, have the same address, same name. So dad's credit can end up on the son's credit report. That's a very common thing that happens. And that's really what you use credit repair for. That's if there's an error. I need to make that very clear. If there's an error, if something is not correct, if you had paid something previously and it was still showing unpaid, that is an error. But let me tell you how credit repair typically works. The law says that if you dispute 5 things on your credit report, and it's just always interesting that people always dispute the 5 things that are bad. They never dispute the 5 things that are good, but they dispute the 5 creditors that are bad. The credit repair company will send a letter to the credit bureaus, typically all 3, and say, we're disputing these 5 accounts. The credit bureaus then contact each creditor. The law says that you have that creditor has 30 days to respond to that written request. So you, as a consumer, are sitting in your home, you start getting letters in the mail on day 35 and day 40, and it says, hey, Shawn, we have removed so-and-so from your Equifax credit report. We have removed this creditor from your TransUnion credit report. Well, guess what? They don't tell you. If they didn't find your account within 30 days and report it within 30 days, the law says it has to be removed from your credit report. But if they find it on day 50, they add it back to your credit report. So you're talking about a very tiny little window here where it might not be on your report. Not only that, you may be getting a letter in the mail that they took it off your Equifax, but they got the information to TransUnion and Experian in time, so it's still on those reports. So credit repair is valuable for corrections that need to be made, errors that need to be made, but ultimately, if you owe a creditor, you should pay the bill. If you're in the middle of hiring a credit repair company and the creditors are yours, I would honestly stop working with a credit repair company unless they're going to negotiate on your behalf a payoff. That might be another useful tool for them to do for you, would be to say, look, we're not disputing that this is his account. He agrees that it's his account, but he's willing to pay it. would you settle for less than what he owes and let them do the negotiating on your behalf?
Shawn has a 400 credit score, and to work with you, he needs at least a 620. How long is it going to take him to build his credit? What's a realistic outlook? 1 year? 2 years? More?
That Shawn has saved $10,000 by working and hustling. And what I would do is, instead of using that $10,000 for my down payment, I would simply try to use that money to pay off as much of that debt as possible. Another thing that I'll tell you is, let's say that Shawn has a $5,000 car repossession on his credit report, and Shawn goes and settles and he pays it. Shawn should always get something in writing, always get an email or a letter in writing that the account has been paid. Shawn should then have a file where he saves that letter or that email. These things have a way of coming back unintentionally, but once you pay it, they come back. And if you don't have proof that you paid it, let's say that his car loan was financed by GM. GM writes his car off as a loss. GM then sells it to ABC Collection Agency. ABC tries to collect the debt for pennies on the dollar for the repossession. They're unsuccessful. So they then sell it again to XYZ Credit Agency. They then try to collect, and they are successful in collecting from Shawn. So Shawn pays XYZ. ABC does not know that Shawn has paid XYZ, and so ABC keeps reporting it on his credit report. So you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own steward. You have to be the person that really can advocate for yourself. Keep records of that. Any errors on your credit report, I would keep them, 7-10 years and address it in that way. But if you have a 400 credit score, there's no real timeline. I can tell you a real life example. I've taught many home buyer courses, and I met a husband and wife in a home buyer course many, many years ago. And she had a 470 credit score, and she had a copy of her credit report. So after I taught the home buyer seminar, I met with her separately, and we did exactly what I'm telling you now. We literally went down. She had quite like 8 or 9 accounts that were not in good standing, and we just started at the bottom. We took the smallest one, and she paid it. And I gave her credit counseling, and I walked away from that meeting feeling like, well, I've given her the best advice I can give her. Now it's up to her to go advocate for herself. And 12 months later, she came back to me and said, Jerry, I listened to every single thing that you said to do. My credit score is now a 700. And she has been a homeowner ever since. And she texts me still to this day every Friday and sends me a note thanking me for helping her realize home ownership. When we started this process, her daughter was 3 years old. Her daughter is now a college graduate. So it can be done. You just have to be diligent, and you have to not be afraid of getting in there and just dealing with it. Once you get past it one time, I had bad credit before, just get past it, and then you'll have good credit and you won't have to worry about this again. I mean, it is honestly, a home is generational wealth. It is something that they pass down from one generation to the next. And it just, that's where it really started for my family. Like, we grew up on public housing and public assistance, and we lived in a trailer court for a good part of my life. And then my parents moved into Section 8 housing before I left for college. And I just realized my parents bought their first home when I was in my mid 20s. And that little house that they bought in Indiana, Pennsylvania, just, it really changed the trajectory of my entire family. Like, all of my siblings, there's 5 of us, we're all homeowners. We're all out in this world, contributing to the world. And it really begins, in my mind, with homeownership. That's how valuable I think it is.
What advice do you have for 1099 contractors?
Shawn. So we started off, we really were focused on credit, but I want to get back to, you said that Shawn also is a rideshare driver, and he also has a part-time job. So I want to talk to you about that because both of those things have very specific rules surrounding them. If you're a rideshare driver, you're typically paid on a 1099. So let's say that you make $25,000 from Uber on a 1099. We have no way of knowing as a lender what expenses you will have of that $25,000. So you may have car expenses, you may have mileage, you may have licensing, advertising, or anything that you would have as an expense for your business. So we would want to see your tax returns filed to see how much of that $25,000 you're writing off in expenses, because your after expenses income is your income to a lender. The other thing that you mentioned is that Shawn has a part-time job. It's the same idea. We want to see that someone can't have a full-time job and then start a part-time job and be on it for 2 months. We won't consider that income because they don't have a history of managing a full-time job and a part-time job. That's a lot of hours worked. So we, again, want to see at least a 12-month history. We'd really like a 24-month history, if possible, of having a part-time job as well.
Any last words of advice for Shawn?
Yeah, so if you're currently a renter, that actually is, there's probably no better credit reference than how do you pay your housing. If you're currently renting and your rent's $1,200 a month and you've paid it on time diligently and you've never been more than 30 days late on your rent, and your landlord will verify that, that's probably the number one credit reference you can give someone. That's another thing also, that if your landlord's agreeable to it, that's another thing that you can self-report on your credit report, is your rental history.